All right, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, we're time for another film and TV news, and this is the good news that Walter been ready for. That I really know that originally I needed to make a video about that topic that I recorded at warreal.com. However, during the Midsummer Day, I decided I skipped it because I skipped that to watch this watching Ari Aster Midsummer movie was airing on the Swedish public television because as probably know Midsummer was become a turning here in Sweden, but I think it's become the new Funny and Alexandra by Ingmar Bergman. But yeah, it was as pretty known. It is a 24 film, but I will not talk about that. I'm talking about the biggest surprise. There's I heard a new announced that Netflix acquired Sesame Street movie rights for Warner Brothers, and because this is going to be the huge, and I'm going to say I'm 100% excited for that because, as we know, Sesame Street was been since the 60s, or I think 50s, 60s better, but it's airing on the public television, particularly on PBS. PBS Kids, more specifically. And it's pretty going to become the well-known children's shows that's pretty familiar with. And it was become a long running. Pretty because he's been for a lot. It's some characters like Bert and Ernie, Cookie Monster, Gruber, and of course Elmo. And even Abby, Cat Betty. I know there's a less known character of Sesame Street universe, but yeah, I don't know what the hell. Anyway, that said, Sesame Street was been for a long, long time, and even another representing the pop culture like The Simpsons and Family Guy. But I know them from Sesame Street for a lot, but I think we're pretty much when I was a kid. I will talk about it later. But it is so popular they become expanded in the overseas, particularly in Latin America, was known as Plaza Sésamo, which is a Latin America Spanish version of Sesame Street. And even the Arab version was titled Ala Alhan Simpson. I'm not talking about now. I know from Sesame Street a little bit. I always love Sesame Street. I was watching I was a kid. I was watching on the Arabic Christian channel. I didn't know this Christian people were pretty much like that, but it was a family channel. I would know Aham Simpson was airing on the Arab TV, but I would know it's airing on some different Arab channels, it's now airing on NBC3, but I'm not sure that Aham Simpson was like Arabic version of Sesame Street, but I know him, but I remember that. But even it's probably airing on the content, so the show. So I remember I was a kid. I finally remember by a little bit, but it was great. So I think this is really the time the rest says, and Sesame Street was been for a lot, and since the after the premium content days from originally after Warner Brothers, now Warner Brothers Discovery, the site ended the partnership with Sesame's Workshop and Sesame Street after 10 years because of after. It would be because he was aired on HBO and HBO Family, but however it expired because it moved into another company was actually a streamer was Netflix, but the reason because the decline of linear TV was probably on HBO, and the streaming service become popular nowadays, particularly on HBO Max, was Warner owns. But however, also the reason because of the HBO Family shut it down due to costing by Warner Brothers Discovery. But then again, all because of David Zaslav. Jesus. But anyway, this movie, I just going to be more like, I know this, and because it now probably bring to the Netflix because of the more like a family franchise. Like it's like after like Netflix was game ended with the Squid Game and Stranger Things and the continued seasons of Wednesday and One Piece. So as was the upcoming Avatar: The Last Airbender. So the live action series, by the way. So But because the bigger plans to continue on, like Netflix wants the Sesame Workshop to continue the franchise, the legacy. So this all episodes, and even after like the second more popular, like after like WWE, the wrestling franchise was been popular nowadays, and after like the cable TV was pretty much um, ended the WWE partnership for quite some time. So it's been becoming the new beginning. Like I think the streaming service like Netflix or any other streaming service like Peacock. But yeah, I think but then also one point that originally Warner Brothers was also the movie Warner Bros. Pictures was set to produce an Sesame Street movie, but there's one director I can't totally remember that, but I would say it also going to be set to star Anne Hathaway and Bob Burnham, the Paul Man's Mauro Miranda was said to write the songs for the movie. Unfortunately, that never came fruition and scrapped for obvious reasons. But at this point, Netflix won, and so nevertheless, it belonged to Netflix and do with something. But at this point, I think the Anne Hathaway's career is like after late stage. They hadn't been making big. Let's not focus on the smaller movies, but until the recent like big year 2026 projects. Now, I mean, the first movie was a Mother Mary movie from A24, was pretty much underperformed. The sequel of The Devil Wears Prada was gone huge hit because of all girls, female dramatic. And of course, the upcoming Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey was. This is a movie was got a lot of controversy due to casting. I mean, I would swear to God, if you end up making another like an anti-war grifter video about The Odyssey, was probably going to be disaster. I would really, really need to shut the freak off. Anyway, and of course the another Coley Hoover adaptation starring alongside Dakota Johnson, and man, I think another word could be worse than another terrible movie stars Dakota Johnson. Better than Madame Web, but we'll see. But anyway, all that's it. I think this 2026 is going to be industry year of Anne Hathaway, but yeah, I think so. But still, I want to talk. But yeah, anyway, since pretty much and of course, so yeah, and since. Now we already know Netflix on board to produce the new Sesame Street movie, which is not going to be released yet. But this production company, Right Back, was a production company with behind like movies like Lilo and Stitch and Aladdin live action movies from Disney, and of course, it co-produced Annie Muschietti It movies. So, and interestingly enough, Right Back was co-funded by Dan Lin. Yes. He is the current head of Netflix feature movie films because he was strong relationship because after working with Netflix since Avatar: The Last Airbender live action series, and yeah, it was a much better than the crappy M. Night Shyamalan 2010 film The Last Airbender, because yeah, it is so makes sense because. I'm not sure that movie does not exist anymore, and the sequel was canceled for obvious reasons because nobody saw the last Airbender movie, and thank God, I think and then totally killed M. Night Shyamalan's career, and especially the After Earth with Will Smith. Yeah, I will not. What a twist indeed. Anyway, this is what. So yeah, I'm this is an industry choice from Netflix. So here is what the article would say on Netflix, the Hollywood Reporter. Netflix had cookies to nom 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 on. Look at that. Oh man, look at who wrote this. They making them beginning the title, but that made no sense. Anyway, coming on top of the two company bidding war, the streaming giant has landed the feature film right to Sesame Street, the long-running and the iconic children's education TV show. Right Back, the production company behind the billion-dollar live-action Lilo and Stitch and Aladdin movies, and run by Jonathan Erich and Marco Lofaso, will be produced the feature. The company had already been working with Sesame Street the co-opening behind the show, because Sesame Workshop was known as the public funded company who focus related to IPs with Sesame Street. So it's pretty much a murder size and all that kind of stuff, And on the animated project, and was able to get an early jump, Sesame Street will be involved in the producer capacity as well. Netflix had no comment. The move brings Sesame Street fully into Netflix arms as a streamer already has and the television rights, something to pick up last year, May 2025. Who would acquire the film rights would have been about a year-long contest. Sesame Street signed with the CIA with its antenna industry in fall, and immediately was a 3-1 grudge match between Netflix, Universal, and of course two sources, Warner Brothers. Warner, who been actually had the feature rights for about a decade, but never able to get the Sesame Street movie, bought out amid of the acquisition drama, first by Netflix, then by Paramount. And Universal were proved as a strong contender, and it had the Daniels, the Everything Everywhere All at Once filmmaking team of Daniel Kwan and Daniel Swanet, who have an first look deal, by the way, attached to produce as well. Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the director of Project Hail Mary. This has become the biggest film of the decade of this year. So I love that movie, but it stars Ryan Gosling. So that's pretty amazing. That's a equivalent of Matthew McConaughey's all right catchphrase. So neither was attached to direct source threads. In the end, Netflix prevailed and helped to that Sesame Workshop also approved the right back's approach to the material. No filmmaker currently attached. Now, I think that, like I said, I think they approved that the Daniels, who's supposed to get a direct between on Netflix alone and some other filmmakers. I think I picked in one filmmaker. It's like, imagine like after like post Bobby, live action movie phenomenon, like there's more the IPs and one the capitalize of the bigger plans, IPs, more things for nostalgia or toys of film and TV and legacy sequels and stuff, but how we do in those days is more different. So I think the brand of the what is going on in the future, like it's pretty much the basically I want to do expand like the bigger plans, like TV shows, all that stuff, video games, all that stuff. So yeah. So I'm excited for that. If you want to know, if you know, I probably know that Netflix already have them feature-length films, mostly from the sex like Dungeons and Dragons and Transformers movies. So both from Paramount, but yeah. So Sesame Street was best known as a home of a Big Bird, Bert and Ernie, Gruber, Oscar the Grouch, Cookie Monster, and Elmo. Yes, I think that Sesame Street would have been since the late 60s, and I think 60s, was airing on NET, now on PBS. But if you're probably familiar, there's probably know that, at one point, I'm sure, and of course some sources, Jim Henson was involved in the working on Sesame Street in early days. So I'm not sure that, but yeah. The series has been generated 2 previous big screen adaptations: 1985's Follow That Bird, and 1999's the Adventure of in Grouch Land. Birds featuring the late great John Candy, Chevy Chase, and Dave Thomas, as well as in the Margaret Puppets. It was distributed by Warner Brothers. So, I'm not sure that this movie exists. Like I saw that Follow the Bird was basically the feature-length version of Sesame Street movie. And nowadays, in the 80s, like the children's IPs and shows become getting a big screen, like My Little Pony and Care Bears and Transformers. But I think this pretty much is something like the more like a children's shows that's airing on TV, but the game on the theatrical release. So I think that makes no sense. But I think the Follow the Bird was like the extended version of Sesame Street episode. But I think that I remember that the logo validation doing Warner Brothers logo was, and even this funny, it wasn't this thing. Even Big Bird said this: the funny movie is brought to you brought to you by a letter W and B. Man, yeah, I know what you need to talk about that. This is like this is one of the good things, but I wouldn't remember that. That's like this logo validation was spread. I don't remember that, but I saw the one review by Nostalgia Critic, and the first thought was doing the thing, and then Nostalgia Critic doing all cute things. Oh, look at that! That's and then all of a sudden losing my mind because I didn't want to do this, and then I walked away, and the guy from Bum Reviews took over and then finished a review, and that's the movie and nutshell. So yeah, that was the funniest nostalgic. That was a great funniest nostalgic career review. I think this is not funniest, but I think this is so cute. And then nostalgic critic like, why I'm not crying, you're crying thing. So anyway, I probably know I haven't seen this movie, and as well as Adventures in the Garage Land it was also not distributed by Warner Brothers. In fact, was distributed by Sony Pictures through Columbia Pictures. But yeah, and also produced by Jim Henson Pictures. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm not sure Wikipedia page. I don't actually know what the production company, but yeah, I think that the movie ended well. And Followed by Birds came out in 1985 and 1992, 99 was this film. I came year before after I was born. I was young back then. Anyway, The Adventures of the Elmo Gonzalez was probably the last film, but it gone for Sesame Street movie for decades until recently. So yeah, in the Insider newsletter first report the news of Netflix acquisition. So this is gonna be a good decision from Netflix, and this is gonna be industry one. I think Sesame Street movie might be released on streaming Netflix streaming service rather in theaters, because as you know, if you know Dan Lin, the head of Netflix feature films and co-founder of Ryback, decided, hey, and he said he didn't like the theatrical window. It's not releasing Netflix movies in theaters because it's probably got a problem with theatrical. But because I know this came off after a failed Netflix acquisition of Warner Brothers, because this is like I know even if theatrical releases, so I think there's we're basically not in movie theaters like when to watch the Netflix movies. Last year, K-pop Demon Hunters had a sing-along theatrical release, and it was fine, but people began to have it over signing a deal with AMC theaters. So I think that makes sense, because Netflix wanted to do the release in theaters, but in some select films in theaters. So Netflix films in theaters, but that if not, I think Dan Ling didn't like the theatrical window. Like, I think the problem with theatrical movie theaters is now changing because of streaming service. So yeah, I'm not sure this is going to be happening anytime soon. So sorry, but that said, I probably know the Sesame Street movie might release in theaters or rather in theatrical. But again, I will mention Netflix already getting the theatrical IMAX release of Greta Gerwig's Narnia movie. So I'd say the post Barbie movie phenomenon. Yeah, it was directed by Greta Gerwig, who did the last couple before that, and it was Lady Bird and Little Woman, both starring by Saoirse Ronan. So, and this is a follow-up film, but it stars Emma McCain, and I'm not like the controversials that got problems with the movie, but I would say this movie is going to be the masterpiece and one I'm waiting for. And heck, even Sony Pictures might distribute internationally. So, and also as well as on Netflix, will release Netflix later after the philosophical window. It's like they already, since like Amazon and GN did have an international philosophical deal with Sony Pictures. We have releasing, but not but releasing in between in the philosophical releasing movies that have the philosophical, but later on release on Prime Video, not including the home media rights. So yeah. Anyway, I think this is like this is going to be a best thing, and I think Sesame Street movie is going to be a turning point. This is not going to be the end of it. This is going to be a bigger plan. Like Sesame Street movie was going to be a bigger, better, and strong plans that wanted to be a letter A. So I think this is going to be amazing. I think again, no filmmaker to. Of course, no filmmaker to attach direct, but we will see what happens. So I haven't plans. Maybe the Daniels, maybe the another filmmaker, like the director of Lilo and Stitch. Who knows? But we'll see. Anyway, guys, so what do you guys think? What do you think of Netflix acquired film rights of Sesame Street, and what do you think of the Sesame Street franchise at all? Because I respect Sesame Street, which become a well family franchise, but mostly not as good as like up here with Coco Melon, and yeah, and because Coco Melon is doing those days, it's like made a feature length movie with DreamWorks animation. Jesus freaking Christ! Along with Shrek 5, because this is gonna be a disaster. Both gonna be disaster because this is part of the dark age of DreamWorks animation. Anyway, but still, I know the Sesame Street has been for quite some time, so been for a lot, and I think I'd be excited for the new movie, but I hope it's going to be good. Who knows? But again, let me know in the comments below and tell me what you think. And that's pretty much it. And I'm going to go watch Obsession later today, so I will see you in the last video. But anyway, thank you for watching. Please let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, share your friends, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell to update on on my channel. And until next video, I'll talk to you guys later. And until then, da 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 da. Over and out.